Yeah, so the question that I have for you is which would you rather have? 100,000 subscribers on YouTube or $100,000 in liquid capital? Now, I really do believe that most of you, if not all of you, would say that you'd rather have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. The question is why? And I believe that the answer is that we all intuitively actually understand that attention is more valuable than money. And even though we all understand that attention's more valuable than money, we're not actually acting or behaving in that way. And that was certainly me, just a few years ago. And I heard somebody say something that really stopped me in my tracks. He said, like, if you are a crappy marketer, you have to become a rock star salesperson. So think about that for a moment, right? If you're a crappy marketer, you have to become a rock star salesperson. And when I thought about it, the conclusion that I came to was, wow, like I'm a rock star salesperson because I'm really not good at marketing, and specifically social media and these platforms that are now available to us. So I did what I normally do when I don't know something, is I sought out a guide, right? I found somebody who had multiple businesses doing between $15 to $20 million a year in top line revenue, and his primary client acquisition channels were media. And I paid this individual a meaningful sum of money to teach me what the platforms were for, right? How to build an ecosystem of attention, and how to really utilize media as a mechanism to position myself as a guide to help people to solve their problems, right? And what that's led to, that was just like 2 or 3 years ago. And what that's led to is now, and I don't tell you this to brag or boast, but just to give you numbers, right, as to the outcomes that that information has produced, along with massive levels of action, is now we have about 60,000 followers on Instagram, and that account regularly receives 400,000 to 500,000 views per month, over 1 million plus views every 90 days or so, like 1.2, 1.3. A YouTube account that in 2024 got 1.7 million views and over 70,000 hours of watch time, which is about like 7 years of human life. And I really do believe that everybody who's watching this can produce similar, if not better outcomes with the right strategies and the right mental maps, right? I've spent, the last 18 years of my career selling over 2,000 properties. 80% of that business was listings sold. I have a coaching company with over 100 plus coaching clients, recently named in Housing Wire's top 25 coaching programs for 2025. I used to own part of a office. I sold it back in order to participate with EXP, the model and the opportunity. And just about 2.5 years ago, and we've attracted almost 400 agents to the organization. And media has played a huge part in that. So what we're going to be covering during our time today is some key concepts that I believe if you really understood, you'd be like 80% of the way there, right? So by understanding, these kind of concepts, you can begin to utilize media as a mechanism to generate leads and attract agents. And I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, that is the ultimate goal and objective. So this idea, the first key concept that I want to share with you guys is that, I hear the word social be utilized in front of the word media. And it really makes me cringe a little bit. And the reason that it makes me cringe is because we're no longer living in an environment in which media is social, right? So I remember, and I'm dating myself, right? When Facebook came out, I was actually in college. And Facebook's algorithm was on the social graph, meaning that it essentially was showing you things that other individuals that you were connected to in some form or fashion, like your friends that you were social with, what they were doing. And it would put that in front of you. And that worked for a while. And then TikTok came around, and their algorithm is actually based on the interest graph. Now, the reason why that's superior is because what I used to think was interesting, or what I was interested in when I was 20 is much different than what I'm going to be interested in when I'm 30 or even 40 or 50, right? As time progresses. So an algorithm that's based on the interest graph is superior because it has the ability to retain my attention for longer, right? Over an extended period of time. So as a response to this, Meta came out with Reels, and then TikTok came out with YouTube came out with YouTube Shorts, right? So one of the key concepts that I want everybody to be clear on is that I'd say 95% of people are still doing media as though it's on the social graph. They're doing things like, hey, here's me eating, at a restaurant, or hey, here's me on vacation, or hey, here's me working out. And nobody's watching that because it's actually not interesting. It's not entertaining. It's not educating me in any way. Right now, these platforms are on the interest graph, meaning what are you actually interested in based on what you've been viewing? And that's what it's going to start to show people. So what you should be thinking is, who's the avatar that I'm interested in creating content for? Because you're actually not creating content for everybody. And what are they interested in? And that's what I should be creating media around, right? So this key concept and this key difference is that it's no longer social media. It's just media. Okay. Another thing I want to stress to you guys is, when I say the word, like if I say attention equals currency, yeah, what does the word currency make you think? Like, what pops into your brain when you say the word currency? Well, it's money, right? So attention is actually more valuable than money. Why? Why is that true? Well, frequency equals familiarity. So the more that you see me, right, you become familiar with me, and that increases the probability that you potentially will engage with me in some way. It also has the capacity to create these parasocial relationships, meaning, like, I'm sure we've all had actors or actresses or even media personalities that are on, these platforms that we feel like we get to know, right? Because we consume a lot of their content. But in fact, we don't actually know them. And let me ask you a question. How helpful or useful would it be for you to go into an appointment or go onto a third-party call and somebody has created a parasocial relationship with you already? They have consumed hours of your content, got to know if they know, like, and trust you and what you stand for and, what your values are, and made a decision that they are interested in perhaps inviting you into their story to help them to solve their problem, whatever their problem might be. It's incredibly advantageous. Now, if I'm only posting things on the social graph, that's not possible. You see how these things click together, right? But now if I'm posting things on the interest graph, so let's say I'm interested in attracting agents. Well, what are agents interested in? They're interested in doing more deals. That's all they really care about. So am I creating content that equips agents with the ability to do more transactions? Because the best way to show somebody you can help them is to help them and do it for free. And the best medium with which to do that, that's the most scalable, are these platforms. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to really, another key concept to really consider is this concept of story branding. Okay. Now, these platforms are mechanisms to create narrative. And if you were at EXPCon, we saw Rene Rodriguez, Amplify Your Influence. He did a talk, and he was sharing that the way that our minds make sense of things is through narrative, right? Is through story. It's a sense-making mechanism. And we've been telling stories for thousands of years. They actually have the capacity to hold human attention for longer than anything else, right? For hours at a time. And we've been telling stories for so long that we have a best practices, right? There's like an epitome of storytelling, and it's the following, which you're looking at right here. The first is that there is a hero, right? The main character. And that hero has a problem, yeah, which they cannot solve themselves. Because if they could solve the problem themselves, they would, and there would be no story. Okay. That hero then meets a guide. Okay. And that guide gives the hero a plan. Okay. And then the hero has to call, the guide has to call the hero to action, because heroes don't take action on their own accord. They need to be prompted by external circumstances or external prompting. And then the hero then uses the plan, and they get what they want and they avoid what they don't want. Okay. And this is every book you've ever read, every movie you've ever watched, every play you maybe have sat through. So to give examples of this, let's think about characters, right? So Harry Potter is the hero. Who's the guide? Dumbledore. Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, she's the hero. Who's the guide? Hamish. Luke Skywalker, right? He's the hero. Who's the guide? Obi-Wan. Okay. So this is the framework with which to utilize these platforms to create narrative, because the goal is you want to position yourself as a guide to help people to solve their problems. I believe what most of us have been doing, because we know this is important, but we don't have a particular strategy, we've been doing social and we're doing story branding wrong because we keep positioning ourselves as the hero. Yeah. So think about it. Let's say you're posting stuff about, hey, like, here's me working out. Who's the hero? Hey, here's a listing that I just sold. Who's the hero? Hey, here's me at my new closing with my little, thing that looks like a key. Who's the hero? Yeah. And everybody sees themselves as the hero in their own story. So if people are watching that, you know what they say to themselves? Oh, Aaron's a hero just like me. I wish I could stop and listen to what he has to say, but I'm too busy trying to find a guide to help me to solve my problems. And we're all looking for guides to help us to solve our problems in financial matters, in relationship matters, in health matters, in spiritual kind of matters, right? So think about this. Let's say you're still doing on the social graph, you're not on the interest graph, right? And you're doing story branding backwards, where you're positioning yourself as the hero. Of course, you're not getting any attention. And of course, nobody's reaching out to you. Yeah? Because you're just doing it wrong. Does that make sense? So understanding story branding and having that inform everything that you're doing. So let me give you an example of what that perhaps could sound like. So let's say you're an agent and you're doing real estate transactions. And instead of a one-dimensional, kind of post of a piece of property, and you're like, here's my new listing on 1265 Banana Street, you're making yourself the hero there. Instead, what if you describe that the problem that homeowner had in terms of their desire to sell and move to Texas and do it in a certain amount of time, and they didn't know how they were going to accomplish that, and they were really concerned that they weren't going to be able to sell their home in the time frame and move the whole family out together because there were some really fixed deadlines. Well, we connected with the homeowner and we utilized this three-step plan. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And that allowed Mr. and Mrs. Seller to sell their home within the time frame that they wanted. They actually moved with 10 days to spare. So if you are a homeowner and have some time constraints and want to make a move happen quickly, DM me the word sell. Now notice that is in story brand format, because who's the hero? The hero is the homeowner, not the agent. Yeah. And now we're describing the hero's problem, which is that they want to move and they have time constraints. They meet a guide. Who's the guide? Yep. The guide then gives them a plan, calls them to action to use the plan. The hero gets what they want and they avoid what they don't want. Do you see? And I promise you, if you start utilizing story branding format in all of your media, position yourself as a guide to help people to solve their problems, people are going to reach out to you. If you utilize media as a mechanism and you're posting things on the interest graph instead of the social graph, and you're giving people really great information that's tangible that they can utilize in their life as it pertains to perhaps moving or perhaps, selling real estate, depending on who the avatar is, they're going to consume the content and they're going to reach out to you eventually. Because here's what's happening during that process. What's happening during that process is they are the hero in their own story. Okay. And they're making a decision based on what they're seeing. If you are a guide that they want to invite into their story, right, to help them to solve their problem, whether that problem is to sell a home, whether it's to buy a home, whether it's to sell more real estate. Okay. So understanding this it's really what it's all about, because, what I'm aware of is that many of us, again, we know this is important, but we don't have any strategy behind it. And that was certainly me in the past. So Yeah, here's where we go through, the characters. The main character is the, homeowner or the agent, right? They have the problem, 3 levels of problems. I'm sure if you guys want this slide deck, we can get it to you. So the next thing I want to have a conversation with you about is how to create an ecosystem of attention, okay? And really understanding what these platforms are for and what they're all about and how to use them, okay? So there's short form content, there's medium, and then there's long form, right? Short form content is 60 seconds or less. And that's like sitting in a room with billions of people and going like this. You ready? Why would somebody want to stop and listen to what you have to say? Okay. Medium form content is something that's like 10 minutes or less. Yeah. And that can be a live stream. That could be something that's on YouTube, perhaps. And then long form content is obviously on YouTube, and that's like 45 minutes to an hour. And you want to build an ecosystem of attention where people can discover you in short form, then go to medium form, and then go to long form. The goal is to get them to long form. So if I was in a room with thousands of people and I asked them, what's the best platform to build a brand? They'd all give me different answers. Well, what I'm aware of is YouTube is the best platform to build a brand, period, end of story, hands down. Like, don't pass go, don't collect $200, right? Why is that true? Well, they are the only ones that do short form and long form. Okay. They also, their parent company is Google, so you have built-in search. And I don't know if you guys know this, some current stats. YouTube is currently 10% of all TV time, TV screen time. It's 10%. It's more than Netflix. So YouTube is becoming, it's not competing with television, it's becoming television, right? So the goal is to get them there. Another key thing to consider in terms of that ecosystem of attention is they've done studies, Dan Kennedy and, Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guys, that if you get somebody to consume 15 hours of your content, they'll eventually engage with you in some way from a business perspective. Well, in order to get to 15 hours of content in short form, they would have to watch over 5,000 pieces of content. In order to get that from YouTube that are an hour long, even if they only watch half of them, it's only 30 videos, right? So building that ecosystem of attention is really important, and taking them on this journey from short form, medium to long form. Now, what that could look like in terms of, kind of creating that content is depending on who the avatar is, right? So let's say we're talking about agent attraction. So the avatar is an agent, they want to do more deals, right? So short form could be, let's say, me in a room talking or teaching something, right? Short little snippets. Who is Aaron and why would I want to even listen to what he has to say? Medium form could be a 10-minute video on how to overcome call reluctance. Long form is an hour-long role play of me role playing what to say and how to say it that people can consume that can help them. So do you see there what we've done is we've built this ecosystem of attention that people can go through. And the goal is for them to end up in YouTube, right? And to end up in long form, because that's where the consumption can happen. And it compresses time, right? So in the attraction game, it's relationships plus value over time. And the relationship piece, remember, we can form a para-social relationship in media. And it compresses the amount of time that it takes to formulate that relationship. So I had somebody reach out to me not that long ago, and they're like, hey, they called me and they were like, hey, I've watched 100 hours of your content on YouTube in the last 90 days. And I thought to myself, wow, like in order to get 100 hours with me in the physical world, it would take a long time and it would cost a lot of money. But he was able to do that for free, compress that down. He wanted to do more transactions. He used what I was teaching him for free to do more transactions. And then he called me to have a conversation about the model and the opportunity, about EXP and partnering. And when he did, he had already decided that I was a guy that he wanted to bring into his life. Yeah, he already wanted to work with me. So I'm like, you got any questions? He was like, nope. What's the next step? Right? So being clear and understanding this ecosystem of attention is really critical and paramount. It's one of these key concepts. And if you're serious about doing this, you're more likely than not going to need a team that can help you with editing, chopping up, and posting content. Because remember, frequency equals familiarity. So I currently do 3 posts a day, 7 days a week, short form. We do 5 long form videos on YouTube per week. I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. I have a team that helps me. If you're interested in, getting their contact information, I'm more than happy to share that with you. Just find me in Workplace, or you can DM me on Instagram at Aaron Novello. But you will eventually, need a team to do it. And also recognize that if it's not worth doing for a decade, it's not worth doing for a day. So I was, like 46 episodes into a podcast with only 200 subscribers over 2 years. Like most people would quit, right? But it was really because I didn't understand. And that's when I got access to a guide who taught me these key concepts. So just to recap, one of those key concepts is we're no longer on the social graph, we're on the interest graph. Stop posting pictures of yourself on vacation or working out, because you're not to the best of my knowledge, you're not a, professional bodybuilder. You're a real estate agent, right? You're not positioning yourself as a guide to help anybody to solve their problems. Stop posting pictures of you and your kids. Nobody's looking at that. Maybe your parents, if they're living, or like family members, right? So it's on the interest graph. Get clear on who your avatar is and what they're interested in. If your avatar, if a large proportion of the people that you serve in your real estate business move from a specific geographic area, ask yourself, what are those people interested in prior to moving? What do they want to know about? And then start creating content so they can consume that, right? Same thing with agent attraction. If you want an agent to partner with you, what do they want to know about, right? What can help them to do more transactions? Second key concept is this idea of, story branding, right? If you're the hero in all your posts, I promise you don't have a big following with a super high degree of probability, because you're making yourself the hero and you're not making yourself a guide to help anybody solve any of their problems. And that it's just not going to work, right? So there's a book that you can get if you really want to study story branding. It's called Story Brand, and it's by Donald Miller, right? That's where I got, the slides from, is from his book. It's wonderful. You should read it twice to make sure you really understand that, and you can infuse that into all of your media moving forward. And then the third key concept is understanding the ecosystem of attention. You got to go from short to medium to long form with the goal of getting them to long form. Those stats I told you about YouTube, they're only going to continue to keep going up as time progresses. I was on a mastermind that I run with some high producing agents and attractors, and I asked them, wow, like if you could have a TV show on Netflix that people can watch whenever they want, would that be worth your time to create and cultivate? And they were like, yeah, that'd be amazing. I'm like, well, you have that with YouTube, because YouTube gets more TV time than Netflix does, right? And, I can already hear some of you guys kind of thinking this. They're like, oh, well, you could do it and I can't. Well, the fact that I'm on here talking to you about media is kind of hilarious to me, because 4 years ago, I was the guy who made fun of people that posted. So what I want to leave you guys with is the following. The most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind. I think everybody understands that this is important, and it's going to be important moving forward. Sticking your head in the sand, saying things like, I don't do this, or like, that's not my style, or whatever. Truthfully, underneath almost all of that is insecurity and fear. If you could go back 10 years ago and be one of the first people that were posting on YouTube, you would, because you would know all of that attention and how you can monetize it in all different ways. So make sure that your future self is happy with the decisions that you make. And what I'm also aware of is that, anybody can do this as long as you decide. The suffix "ide" means to kill. Homicide, suicide, pesticide, genocide. Just decide. I decided that I was going to figure this out, and I spent a lot of time, energy, and resources to do that. So I hope that this has been helpful or useful to you in some way. If I could be of assistance to you, feel free to reach out in Workplace, or you can check me out at Aaron Novello on YouTube, the Aaron Novello podcast, where we give out $1 million worth of game for free. I appreciate your time. Look forward to connecting soon.